Yo, hey guys, Weeks here, back in another video. Today I want to talk about the Slormancer. So we've been in early access for 2 years, and there's been a lot of updates. We've currently gone from level 48 to 70. A little bit about myself: played the game since early access. I got a key from the developers, so appreciate that a lot. But I've been playing off and on with new updates. They recently released a level 70 update, and I think it's a good time to give some feedback, some suggestions to the developers. And so, yeah, I'm making this video. It's not going to be highly edited or anything like that. I just want to kind of show off things in game, things I'm concerned with, things I think should be buffed, things I think should be nerfed. I know a lot of things have already been touched on. I know the future roadmap. We still have legendaries to come. We still have more Reapers to come. They recently announced they want to do a rework on evasion, resist armor, and Reaper runes. So I know those things are coming. I'm not really going to go into those as much since they have said that they're coming out. Anyway, without further ado, let's talk about the Slormancer and 2 years of development and what I think about it. Okay, and one more thing before I get started. I also want to just do some disclaimers that I'm in no way a developer. I haven't developed any games, I just play games. I played this game a lot. I can show my stat screen real quick. I've played around 800 hours, done tons of things in the game, gotten most of the Reapers up to max level. Between all of these, unlocked most of the primordials, got a lot of those to max level. I'm still working on the night ones, whatever. Got all the runes up, the ultimatums up, so I've just played the game a lot, right? I haven't pushed anything past plus 20, and I've messed around with a lot on the ancestral tree. I know there's a lot more to come. So mainly this will be focusing on things that I don't think will change with more expansions. These are like balance issues or items that are oppressive or just skills or abilities that are oppressive. Lastly, I would just want to say that I don't know the developer's vision for the game. If they're happy the way it is, that's great. If they're just catering to the community, that's also great. I'm just throwing this out there, which I've also done for Heroes of Hammerwatch when I used to play that game in the past. And yeah, the developers took the information, they made some changes, they didn't make other changes. This is just my suggestions, what I guess I would like out of the game, but everyone is different. Same with the developers, they might have a different vision than what I even know about. So, disclaimers out the way, let's get into it. Okay, so again, let's get started. I got my list up, I'm just going to start working through it. And yeah, no more cuts or anything, let's just start playing. So, the first one I want to talk about is gold and lag. So maybe it's just how this build is built, just because it's a very strange build. It doesn't want any damage, it wants a bunch of projectiles, and it wants to farm as much gold as possible. So I will do a quick little spot and show like the gold lagging. I have DPS off and some other things, but as you see, it's okay right now. It will slow down. Yeah, there we go. It's slowing down. I'm also getting tons of gold doing this, so that's probably part of it. This is not intended, but I am curious if there's anything that can be done. I believe in the forge, all of the gold is like little pink gems, and when you pick it up, that helps with your lag, whereas this is the big pieces of gold, actual icons, and they all shimmer. So maybe that's something we can look into. That would be a suggestion, is the gold FPS drops. Maybe you can change it to where gold picks up while you're not moving, so you don't always have to move. Um, Alternatively, I think it should be changed to where gold in other modes are better, so maybe buff gold in the forge. I know I've seen some outliers where people have gotten crazy amounts of gold in the forge. I would say also maybe Slurm Temple, or if you do the Battlefield Expeditions where you're doing a boss run, maybe the boss can drop a nice chunk of gold. Some alternative ways of farming gold besides making a dedicated gold farmer, because it's just so efficient. The issue with the gold farmer being efficient this ties into my next point of pure stats. So what you normally do, or what I've done, and I'm assuming this is what the meta would kind of shape into, is you farm gold really quickly, you go to the gambler, you have your stats selected that you're looking for, and you find some pure items. I personally think pure items should not exist in the gambler anymore. I've spent many hours sitting at the gambler finding pure items. We can go ahead and show it off. It seems to be the best way in the game to get gear, which I find concerning. That the best way to get gear is just to go in and farm gold and then reroll until you get the pure stats you want. And I've basically saved a bunch of different pure stats. I think you shouldn't get this from the gambler. I think it should be in the Slorm Temple. It should be in some of the other modes that haven't come out. Whatever the Warlord hunt is going to be. Maybe Forge has more. I just think the gambler is a bad place for it. I did most of these at level 60, so you'll see they're all low item level. But with this item, you can upgrade them all to level 70 and beyond. So this is basically a lot of best in slot in-game gear that I already have. I just need to upgrade it. Which ties into another point is I think upgrading should be easier. When you go in here and you look to upgrade an item, if I wanted to upgrade this one, even if I'm using the max one, I need to click this like 29 times, and then I need to click the other ones a bunch of times. I'd do 29 because you actually want the next level to have full potential. Maybe that could be changed to where that's a little spot on here. I feel like that would be decently easy to change. And then you go and you put in 20 of these, and that brings you up to 100% critical, 100% double, and then you have your failure. And then you put in harmonies until it starts going down. I would have to put in another 100, and then as you go up, you need to add in more and more harmonies. So a suggested change would be some way to limit the amount of materials that once you reach 100% critical, any materials past that don't get consumed. Once you reach past 100 double, any additional materials don't get consumed. And the same with harmony for the failure. I was thinking of other ways to fix this in case there is no way to do that. One way would be to add an extra item into the blacksmith that would be like a greater Slormancer of harmony, which would be like it costs 100 of them to make one of these, and when you put that one in, it reduces your failure chance by 100. That would work. Another idea would just be, instead of these stats being low, where it doesn't tell me what they do here, but it's like 1% failure rate. Maybe you could cut their drop rates down and instead do 10%, minus 10% failure chance, and just adjust all of them by a factor of 10, so you don't have as much clicking. Because when you're upgrading gear, it definitely is a lot of clicking. All right, so yeah, I think that's it with crafting, pure stats, and gold. So we can also talk about some items that I feel are just really oppressive. The first one being Soul Mantle. Soul Mantle is probably the most egregious item. I have mine to plus 5% chance, and just with how easy it is for classes to get a dot, this dot damage can get insane. So I can basically cut all the damage off this character. I can run up here, get burning from the burning trail, get ignite here if I want, or get these fireballs. So I do ancestral crit, these fireballs go and they burn everything, so that's going to clear like the whole screen. You can do that on any build. You can also go here and you can use this Reaper, and you can couple it with the Ancestral Strike activator, and yeah, it's not going to cost much at all to get this going. And you can have at least 2 dots on your build, or 3 ancestral crits. You have this rune up all the time. Well, 7 ancestral crits. Either way, it's a ton of dots. The dots also don't scale off of dot damage, which I think is a great thing. But you can debuff the enemies, like with the giant primordial staff of the giant slayer, and this will increase the damage of the soul mantle. So it's just a way that the calculation works. But the mage has Arcane Bond. The mage can get a burn. The mage can get the Ferocious Affinity rune. And probably some more. As you continue adding more stuff to the game, there's going to become more and more dots most likely. And that's going to make the build better and better. As you increase this higher and higher, it's going to make killing enemies faster and faster. And what you can do, and is what I've done with this knight character, is you don't run any offense. You run only defense, and you do dots. So I can quickly show this. This might not be appropriate for the video, but I'll just kind of show it. I haven't made a build guide, but I'll show it. But the idea is it does a lot of dots, and it doesn't have to invest anything for them to do damage. It just does damage. And it kills everything at the same amount of time. So it doesn't matter if I pick all the HP in the forge. Things will get up to billions of HP, and it'll all still die at the exact same rate, which is, it's crazy. It allows me to do some pretty crazy things on this character. I'll have to go to main menu to get out of here. But, yeah, it just becomes really oppressive because you can go full defense. You get another dot here with the retaliate. We get dot from the burning. We get a dot with the cyclone, doing skewer. Maybe Echoes of Villainous counts as a dot. It really doesn't matter because things die in like 1 second. And yeah, I don't see a way that the game can outscale this because I can just stack pure defense. I have block on this character. I have, well, I didn't invest in this defense. I just did evasion. And then I have all damage reduction, a bunch of other reductions. Basically, the build is OP because it doesn't need a lot of stats. It just gets to go full defense on most of its stats besides crit, ancestral crit, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I won't harp too long on it, but I think the item should be nerfed, probably by half damage. I would say 2.5% would make it feel a lot better. Maybe it needs to be nerfed even more. But it's a good build. It's a good item. I've noticed that when I make other builds, such as this mage build, this mage is a mage stacker. I was looking in here. I was going to do, you know, this damage since my mana. I was going to use the cape that also did damage since my mana, but then I had a forge run where the enemy's got a lot of health, and I was like, hey, I could just be using Slormancer. I can switch. Well, I already used the first affinity staff. I can, you know, change one thing. Put on Salt Eating Mantle. I have 1 dot, and everything is going to die in at least 20 seconds. Probably faster, because I also have some ways to do other dots in here. But that's just crazy. And if I switch to burning, I get more points. Then I would have 3 dots, and then it becomes, my build is just a dot build. And I feel like that's oppressive. It pushes other builds out of the game. But anyway, I'll stop talking about that because I've kind of droned on for a while now. Alright, so I find Soul Mantle to be the most egregious. I would also say to keep an eye on this item, the cloning pads. I currently have +7 projectiles. If you go in here, you can see that each additional projectile, it reduces your maximum to 90% if you have 10. So I feel like 10 should just be the cap, but it doesn't seem like 10 is the cap. You can get 7 additional projectiles there. If I go into my actual skill, I get another +5. So when you send them out, oh, I have clones on. But when you send them out, it does a ton of projectiles, and they bounce around and do everything. So as you can see, like they just bounce around forever. You fill up a whole screen. I feel like that could contribute with lag as well. So just a way to reduce lag is to limit the projectiles. But it's something to keep an eye on because that's, what was that, 5? +5 and +7? Plus the base. So I should have 13 projectiles, and every additional projectile I add, it just gives me not 10% increased damage, but it gives me another orb that does 10% of my damage. Does that make sense? So it comes out a little less than 10%, but regardless, it's something that I can just keep scaling up, and you get crazy amount of projectiles. So I would say maybe cap projectiles in general at 10. Maybe that means needs more testing, but yeah, that's something I would be worried about. I'd also be worried about the shoulders that give Reaper damage, if I can find it. Yeah, max Reaper damage multiplier. So this one could be oppressive. I'm not sure if it is, but it's huge, right? I know there's a lot of new legendaries coming. There's not a lot of new Reapers. So maybe this isn't going to be a big deal, but it seems generically powerful. And I'd be a little concerned about generically powerful items because it can push out basically every other shoulder slot. If you're using any Reaper that goes off of Reaper damage that isn't working on a proc or a dot or something else like that, then it's going to beat them out. Unless it's a projectile because you're going to be wearing the cloning pads instead. Maybe there's some other ones. If you're doing Thorns Retaliate, something like that, then you'll want a Thorns Retaliate, something like that, shoulder. But it just seems really good. Those are the 3 items that come to mind as like, these are super powerful. I'll say that there's some that are like laughably bad that I've tried to make work, and they read like they would be really good, but then in turn they're actually not very good. So one I was interested in was these shield globe boots and lightning journey. So it says it just stacks up until the end of the expedition, and you get 1 elemental damage per stack. When you upgrade this, you gain more stacks, so you gain the stacks faster. Unfortunately, it doesn't say, but the cap is 999. So at most, you'll get 999 flat elemental damage until the end of the expedition. The more you reinforce it, the faster you will get those 999 stacks. It's just, it's laughably bad, unfortunately. And it also pushes you to go to Ellie for Shield Globe, which is kind of interesting, but it doesn't stack enough to be worth a boot slot. So I would say, maybe look at that. Also, Coward's Belt. I don't know if I have one in here, but it is a very sad belt. This belt here. It gives you 5% of your current HP every 5 seconds. So that's your current HP. So if you're at 95 HP, you're not getting 100%. You're getting 5% of the amount between 95 and 100, which is just crazy small. I would also say Crusader's Faith is a little underwhelming. It's the one that you get life on block. Life just scales way faster than some of these, so Crusader's Faith gives you 272 life on block at plus 20, which I have 106k life. So I would just say, maybe some of the smaller underused items can get a little bit of a buff because they either have weird caps, weird reinforce bonuses, or their numbers just don't scale up well. Most uniques are percent based. These ones are fixed. So I think that's why they're weaker. If they were a percent of your HP for the block, maybe you get 0.01 or 0.1 per block, then you have something there. But as it stands, the 272 is very small. And I would say look into that. It probably needs a little bit of a rework, but I know y'all will probably do some sweeping change of all of the items at some point. I want to mention some more about the mage one here. I was going to put in stuff about generally looking at the runes, but I read today that y'all have an update coming where I want to look at the runes because Thornbite is crazy overpowered. Some of the other ones are not usable at all, really. But I'll wait on that, give my review after. But that looks good to me. Let's talk about a skill with the mage. So mage clones are insane, to put it frankly. So if you are a self-casting character, you can only cast at a fixed rate. But then you can have 3 clones without any investment. You just have to be, the purple spec. You'll have 3 clones and they're going to cast 3 times faster than you. They inherit all of your stuff, so they get all my projectiles and everything like that. And they just become absolutely crazy. I wanted this build to be a self-cast build, but the clones are too crazy to not use. So I would say maybe the clones should do a percentage of your damage because they are immortal. They don't take damage. They cast, they can't be silenced. Like nothing bad can happen to them. You can just station them in like the perfect spots. You can stand in the corner and they just nuke everything for you. So they're like really overpowered. It feels like you should be stronger if you're self-casting, but if you're using the clones, you know, they should each maybe divide the damage between them. So like this one would do 33% of my damage, that one would do 33% of my damage, and that would do 33% of my damage. I can no longer cast the skill, so you know I'm offloading onto them, or maybe they do some other number like 50, 50, 50. But as it stands, they each do 100% of my damage. And that's just kind of crazy because I'm not even scaling them. I have no stats to increase my minion damage or attack speed or anything like that. And they can do everything better than I can, which I find kind of odd. And I would say that's pretty oppressive. It's hard to not use clones on the mage, which maybe that's fine. Maybe that's what you want with mages and their lore. You want to use clones if you can. But, you know, worth mentioning. Also, silence on the mage, completely busted. This one here, critical strikes silence enemies for the next 1 second. Doesn't sound that bad, but it's literally like every second. With clones, it's even more exaggerated. I'll go in here. So one thing you can do is you can just set up all your clones over here. You can stand in this little pocket, right? But as you can see, everything is getting silenced. And silence is just a really crazy debuff. As in, it makes it, does it say here? Unable to cast skills. It says unable to cast skills, but it actually means unable to cast skills or attack. So melee can't attack me, range can't attack me, they can't put anything on the ground, they can't do anything. It's very similar to stun in that way, but stun, they don't move anymore. Whereas this, they still move, which is arguably better. So I would say maybe silence is just, they can't cast spells, or maybe ranged units can't attack you, but melee could still attack you, because silence as it is just crazy. Also 1 second for each crit is pretty insane. That's it's a long time. It could probably be half that and still be good. You go to the ancestral tree. There is also this one here where you do an ancestral crit and everything within 3 yards is silenced for 5 seconds. That's way too much. It's way too long. That silence is like forever. And what's a little weird about it is pathing to it. You have to, well, if you're pathing this way for 4 points, you're going to get this blind, which is way weaker. Miss 50% of melee and projectile attacks. So I think silence is just bugged where it does everything. Maybe I'm a little wrong, but they don't attack you, they don't cast at you, but they still move at you. And then we have stun here, right? Yeah, stun, they're able to move or cast spells. Okay. So silence is basically stun, but they can move. So I would look at silence because it is very OP on the mage. And since it's OP on the mage, it just existing in this tree here makes it to where this could also be OP. Because this isn't even crit, this is just hits. So skills in your primary and secondary have a 13% chance to silence enemies for 1 second on hit. And you can just get crazy amounts of hits. So I would look at silence. I think it's pretty busted. Alright, let's talk about some ancestral tree. So the ancestral tree, my main feedback is it heavily favors elemental damage. As in, there's not a lot of enablers for raw damage or skill-based builds. So if you search elemental, it's like everything on the tree lights up. A lot of this stuff is like thorns and retaliate and stuff like that. You go like raw damage. You have a couple. Some of these are skills. This isn't even based off of raw damage. I'm not sure what is triggering this one. There must be some word that has raw in it, but regardless, yeah, everything very, very much favors elemental. So some suggested changes for that is all of these nodes that are, this node here, elemental boost, it appears a bunch of times in the tree. Maybe some of these could be changed to raw damage or skill damage. Yeah, there's a couple different ones, but these are kind of pathetic. I mean, 11% LE damage. At level 40, that was pretty good, I guess, and plus 69 flat. But the real things that push elemental over everything else is stuff like this, where you can get up to 90% elemental damage for this one node here. You can get where is it? You can get flat LE based off of your missing life, or your max life, sorry, your max life. You can get flat LE based off your mana lock, and there's one more in here somewhere. Yeah, you can get flat LE based off your LE resist. So there's a lot of ways to get a bunch of flat LE in the tree, and there's lots of ways to get a bunch of flat elemental damage. But there's not a lot of ways where you can get raw damage, skill damage, or anything like that. So I would say maybe do a once over with the tree, help out your primary and secondary skills, because unfortunately the mage is the character that has everything as far as the skill-based builds go. Or sorry, elemental damage builds go. So if you look at the LE damage on here, most of them have LE, some have LE and skill. Well, that's only skill. Apparently all these have LE and skill, except for this one. But if you go to some of the other ones, like the Knight, nothing has LE damage. Some have procs that do LE damage, but there's not really a way to make an LE build that isn't a proc off of the Knight. Everything is skill damage. So if you do all these things to get LE damage, it doesn't actually benefit your skill because there's no spot to add it. It just adds the LE damage, except for like Rain of Arrows on the Huntress can have, it has a conversion to where everything goes to LE. So I would say, some of that could use work. I mean, maybe there's a Reaper in the future that's going to allow LE damage to be added to your skill damage. Maybe there's the legendary, but as it stands, the tree does not favor primary, maybe not primary, skill damage based builds very well because it's just so hard to get those stats. Raw damage is also one of the lower stats that you can get on gear, which is a powerful stat. While I'm talking about another low stat is life regen. I've gotten life regen on a few pieces. I apparently only have it on one now. I've rolled it off since then, but each roll is very minor. If I can find a roll real quick. So this is plus 20. Where's my life regen? There it is. As an epic stat, life regen is 113 at plus 20. So even if I had it on like every piece of gear, I would have like 1.5k, right? And I don't. And 1.5k is still going to take me like 100 seconds. Well, 1.5, maybe like 75 seconds. I know the issue with life regen is it's possible to be completely AFK because you can just regen more life than the enemies are dealing, but in this case it's like a useless stat just because the numbers are so low. Maybe that's fine. Maybe you don't want life regen in the game, you want bad stats, and that's fine then. I just wanted to kind of put that out there that if life regen was supposed to be like a viable thing, it's very difficult to make work. Oh, one more thing I want to talk about with the ancestral tree is there's some spots that have really good opportunities for multipliers, but instead they're just increased. One being like the Shadow Shield, where as you rank it up, you can get 25% armor, 25% LE resist, and 1% life leech for 8 seconds on an ancestral crit. It doesn't say that the stacks or anything. I haven't actually messed around with it. Maybe it stacks. If it stacks, that's great, but I doubt it stacks. So the issue with it is it's only percent, right? It's not a multiplier. If it was a multiplier, this would be super good. Because what happens is we're only going to have 7 stones up here. And you have to spend 5 to get here, no matter what you do. And it's just not ever worth 5 points. So that's one thing. Another idea I have just for the Reapers that give you an imbue. So that being this one. This one makes your max life 1 it gives you light imbued skills in your primary and secondary slot, and it allows you to uh, life leech, life on hit, and all that is converted into shield. It's a shield based build. Life is one. You have to have some way to not die in the first hit or whatever, right? But the issue it has is it gives your light imbued skills 150% increased damage, which I think it should just say light skills. So any skills you pick on the tree, you just wanted to make like a flash dart build, it would still get that 150% increased damage. It also unfortunately says shield globe value is also increased by 0. The increase is based off of your elemental damage. So I was thinking I could use those globe boots from earlier and get some elemental damage that way. Just keep stacking up as you went through the forge. But it doesn't work because it caps out at 1,000 and you can't really do anything. So it basically means you can't use this on a knight, which feels really weird because because nothing really scales LE damage on the knight. You also want to be going and getting light imbue, which cost at least 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I know we'll get some more points later. You can get the wings and all of that. But currently to get there, it's very difficult. So one thought is that you would change it to where it increases light skills by 150 damage. So it didn't matter what skill you got in here. If you got some of these, all of these skills would be increased. Maybe you can also say you can only select light talents. And I would go as far as to say this should allocate light imbue on the tree. So how that would work is you would put this Reaper on, this would be activated, and I can branch out my tree from there. And maybe I can only pick light skills. So if I wanted to go this way, I could pick these light skills. I could pick that one. I can go this way, but if I get outside of light, I can't do it. So you could grab these points, you know, which maybe there's some system coming in the future that makes it to where this would make sense without having to allocate this. But I think it'd be really cool because there's got to be one of these for every element. We have the lightning, we have the light, and I imagine the other 3 will be coming. And yeah, it would just be really nice to be able to really customize a shadow build, a frost build with the Frost Reaper, getting Ice Imbue off the bat, and then being able to branch out from there. It would make it feel really different, it'd be really cool, and I just think it would be a really good change. Alright, last little bit I have here is some in-game adjustments. So in the Forge, you only fight the Siege Leader once. I would say it'd be pretty interesting if he kept showing up maybe every so often. I think that could be fun. It'd be cool, add some more to it. The Slorm Temple, maybe that boss also shows up more often instead of just at these fixed points. And lastly, I would say for the battlefield expeditions, I would increase the size for the activation radius of the portals to where you don't have to get as close to them. You don't have to physically touch them with your character. Maybe just make them a little wider, because when there's a lot of enemies on the screen, or you're lagging a little bit, or you have a lot of move speed on your character, it is very difficult to run directly over them, and you'll feel like you're just going like back and forth trying to hit it. And that can be helpful for some people to just have a larger radius. I'll also say it would be nice if maybe one of these two in games had some way to push your character to the point of failure. Currently, it's you select and you go up to wave 10. If you can beat wave 10, your character is basically good forever. I would like to see something where I can just keep going, similar to maybe a greater rift system like in Diablo 3, where you can just keep upping the difficulty until your build falls apart and breaks. And I think that would be pretty fun. Also, if there was a way to run expeditions where you didn't need to open the breaches as much, or if there was a way to run Forge to where you didn't need to keep clicking the next bonus, I think it is cool. But I would also think that it can be, it can also be fun to just be able to have it automatically select something at random. Maybe get a little bit more rewards because you're picking at random instead of only picking the stuff your build is good for. and that could be fun. It could break your build, or it could be something you have to overcome. But the idea would be, instead of every so often you have to break your gameplay and pick another choice, you can just keep killing monsters, and that's what we like to do. Well, anyway, that's going to be basically my thoughts and feelings of the game. I think there's some good changes in there, probably some easy changes like number adjustments, radius adjustments, different things like that, some things to look at. I really appreciate the time. Anyone watching this video, let me know down in the comments if you guys have any suggestions. Um, yeah, I'm really curious what you guys think of my suggestions in addition to what you guys feel, because I know everyone at different points in the game probably has different feelings. There's a lot of builds I haven't played. There's a lot of builds I have played, and maybe I'm biased in some way towards certain things. But regardless, thanks everyone again for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one.